Да, ну,
Hello folks, BootBrew.com here, Arne Pirzo together with Valentin Solovyov.
hello?
Today we would like to discuss most of the cards, particularly commons and rares from the basic set of the Faeria. As you can see on the screen we have now the commons in
Neutrals.
neutral commons in the mana cost, fairy cost order. So let's start from the Farm Boy. I think it's one of the essentials, and actually in a lot of starting decks that I think plan to go wide for a longer game and need to farm Faeria resources extensively. I think it's well, I think you will disagree, but my first thought when I started playing for a few hours was that going two neutral lands to the side to the well and put in the Farm Boy was actually decent play in a lot of decks for this like starting level.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Faeria is that even cheap cards might be very useful exactly because they're good at harvesting. The Farm Boy is cheapest harvest. Well, yeah, it's cheapest harvester you can get. There is aquatic fish in blue, but it needs colored lands. This is easy to play, and if it harvests something, it already gives you Faeria. So it's really efficient at harvesting, but not good at fighting. So it's a good card actually, despite its looks. But you probably won't be including it when you have better collections. But at the starting levels, it's actually really decent.
Okay, then spells or I would rather say events like Campfire and Falcon Dive. I'm not a fan, even though they're cheap, they're neutral, but uh, it looks too weak to me.
Yeah, that's where most card players make a slight misassessment because Falcon Dive is actually strong. It's really when Pandora Mode Limited will come out, it will probably be one of the stronger picks in that mode, and even in like for budget players or the players who didn't buy the whole collection, Falcon Dive will be their friend at the beginning and maybe even later on, because one damage kills opponents' harvesters. There are a lot of cards with one toughness, and Falcon Dive just trades efficiently with them. It's cheap and it's doesn't have any requirements, so you can always use them. Campfire is slightly worse, but buffs in this game are really good, so it's slightly better than it looks, but by itself you probably won't exactly be adding it to the deck. But by the way, we skipped the Hold the Line event. What do you think about that?
I don't have good experience about it. I think it could be decent for one mana. Couple tons is quite okay.
They cost 3 mana to play, the Imperial Guards.
Uh,
That's not written on the card. So
oh yeah, right.
so 1 mana to get 3 mana 2 taunts. Taunt is strong, but again, sorry to pop your bubble, but this isn't actually good. At least not with my experience, and I have actually seen quite a bit of people dislike the card because 3 mana 2/2s from this is pretty hard to play. They're just too expensive since you card advantage isn't as important in this game as it is in Magic or Hearthstone and other card games. That's why the fact that Falcon Dive, for example, costs 1 mana to deal 1 damage is efficient. 1 mana to get 3 mana 2 tons is not as efficient because you will still have to pay Faeria for the Imperial Guards.
Hold on. So basically, each of these guards will cost 3.
Yes, You can
Okay,
scroll
okay, it's
down.
terrible. It's terrible.
I think it's if you scroll a bit down, there will be Imperial Guide by itself.
Yeah,
So
probably. Well, now the second row. Um, Famine is probably very tricky, but I could see some decks actually wanting this.
yeah, developers talked about the famine. It was kind of controversial because you kill your own harvesters. It's a mass removal, and this game does not have a lot of mass removals. Red, I think, is the only color that has mass removals. So dealing one damage to everybody is interesting, but otherwise it's controversial. So you might be playing it if you want to kill opposing harvesters. Otherwise, it's slightly improved Falcon Dive, but costs more. So yeah. What about Unlikely Hero?
I like it. It's tricky to get value out of it, but once you get value out of it at least once, it's worth the card.
Yeah, the issue is getting the Divine Shield or buffing him. I actually liked him at the first glance very much. I think it's good, though I haven't actually gotten to it to work. So hard to say, but my advice is don't try too hard to make it work if it doesn't, but it's cute. So Steamforge, don't have really good experience with it since it seems too slow, but Shimmering Statue is actually slightly decent because there are colors that lack life gain, and this will provide you with protection and life gain for your red and blue decks. So do keep in mind that there are life gain options even for those decks.
Yeah, I really like the statue. I saw people play it against me, and even though it wasn't that insane in those particular games, but for 2 mana, gaining on average about like 6 life with this card because
Yeah,
of the 4 from the taunt.
Yeah, do keep in mind that it won't get you above your maximum life total, so you shouldn't be playing it like first thing you can do. You should wait until you actually take some damage before playing this.
Okay, moving down. Let's see what I actually like. I don't fancy the Healing Sun really.
Funny thing is that's the best card in this row, because as I said earlier, there are blue and red don't have life gain options. So this is same as in the Shimmering Statue from previous row. This gains you 4 life and draws you a card. I'm not a fan of it, but it is a life gain options and one of the only ones. So you should keep that in mind when browsing what to add to your deck.
Okay, let's just say that you have probably a lot to say about Village Elder.
Well, a lot to say is that, as I said earlier, card advantage isn't as important for this game, and the fact that it does only after it dies is basically like Loot Hoarder in Hearthstone, but it's worse because the stats are worse, and it can harvest. I tried it. I didn't like it. That's basically what I have to say about it.
The Horseman and the Tax Collector look pretty bad, I think.
Yeah, Horseman dies to basically everything. Although charge 2 so it can move farther, but there are better options for you to choose from. And Tax Collector is probably slightly better than it seems, but I don't have a good impression of him, because even though it basically costs 1 less, since to kill him they have to fight him, so you gain 1 Faeria back. It's still 2 mana, 1/4. It's nice, but I haven't seen him. Maybe he's better than he looks, but I haven't really seen him and wouldn't be putting him in my decks.
Right. I really like protection as a thing in Faeria, but safeguard, it's just not really cutting the crop for me.
Uh, well, you might want to add it in your big green decks since it will make your big green creatures trade more efficiently. Since, well, if you have like 6 mana 7/7 hitting your opposing 6 mana 7/7, you will probably want this more than some random buff. But yeah, overall, this costs a bit more than it should have. So I don't really like it either.
Okay, I'm actually sort of impressed by Master Swordsman. Um, I've seen people play it against me, and actually it's quite efficient for its costs.
Yeah, so basically, some of its stats on your turn is 7. You want to have some of the stats to be somewhere around double the cost. So he is efficient, though he's not as efficient in defense. I do like him. He's a budget option, though usually I don't think I will have a way to. I don't think it will be good enough to find a way in your deck when you have some epics and legendaries. But on a budget and if you don't have any cards, it's not a bad one.
I actually see some sort of combo decks with him, just giving him flying charge, haste, etc. and just
Yeah.
going the distance.
It's important for all neutral creatures to remember that it's much easier to play them, especially the creatures for 3 mana or less, because you don't have any colored land requirements, so it's easier to gain control of the board. So in that sense, Master Swordsman is really good since he trades basically with anything your opponent could play on his first turn as well.
Yeah, so you can essentially play this on first turn, and then before that probably just put 2 neutral lands in front and
Yeah.
just play him turn 1. I think it's very strong play.
Yes, for aggression it's good. I do think there are better options for aggression, but if we only look at commons and rares, then it's strong. Yes.
Okay, let's go down.
We didn't mention our cutie Faeria. He's good. He's a good harvester since he's hard to kill.
Right, I think I'm not really excited about it for ranked play for constructed, but in limited, i.e. in Pandora, I think it's very solid pick.
Well, if you're on low ranks, as in 25 to 20, Faeria is still decent because it's quick, it's neutral, and you have it, unlike some other rares. That's why you shouldn't forget about it. It might not be the most exciting card, but it's still a perfectly fine card to play. At least I like it much more than Imperial Guards.
Okay. I don't know. In the right metagame, I could see Punishment being a great card.
It's good. It's well, at least it's decent because there are some neutral minions you want to kill, and it deals 2 damage to everybody else, and it doesn't have colored land requirements. So I could see like by default sliding it in basically any of my decks if I didn't have any good legendaries or epics, because this actually kills some of the, nearly every neutral minion. There are some more expensive ones that it doesn't kill, but still, and it kills your opponent's harvesters, most of them at least. So it's good way to deal with opposing creatures, especially for green decks which don't have any direct removal spells. Well, and blue as well, but blue does have other options to do it. So this punishment is actually really card that is often used.
Okay, I don't like the Court Jester. I think the effect is just too weak.
Uh, yes, it's weak, but it does have its combos since. First of all, if you calculate the stats it gives, it's basically 6 stats for 3 mana plus taunt, so you're actually on the winning side of the equation. And also this can give your other cards, like for example Chargers, +2/+2, which makes it more interesting. And the guy by itself can just go harvesting, so you can just put it in a corner to harvest if there isn't anything happening there, and the guy who gets actual benefit from him can go fight somewhere else. So you should keep an eye on this. I have seen this used. I use this myself as a harvester, so I like him, though it's not the best option. There are better options to play, but you should keep an eye on him.
Okay, I do like Plague Bearer, but I don't currently have a good deck to support him. I don't have a really good control deck.
Yeah, that's the issue, because really good control decks tend to need more of a rare and epic cards, and the rest of the decks are creature based, which means you will be killing your own creatures. I also like him, but I haven't found a deck to play with him because not enough like creatureless control cards for me.
Okay, while I was trying to make a controllish deck, and I've put one of those mass removal creatures like this barrier. Actually, in mid-rangey granted decks which are not super control, I really like the Storyteller. If your quality of cards and the power level is higher than, let's say, compared to a lot of aggro decks or tempo decks, Storyteller I think is pretty cool, even though it's not a great turn 1, turn 2 play, but in later turns you get a harvester, you gain some life, you draw some cards, you can play something what you drew right after it. So I think in terms of playability you should probably compare it to something like in Hearthstone the 3 mana free for drop. I forgot the name for a second. That gives you both random Spellslinger, right?
Yeah, well, I also like him because, but for a slightly different reason. The live gain. I might be stressing it too much, but the live gain in this game is really limited. Only green has good live gain, and like yellow has some live drain. So for other decks, live gain options are really limited, and this Storyteller is one of them. For all the same reasons you mentioned, he's good, but also the fact that you, as a control player, will gain more removal and more life, and the opponent, even if opponent will gain more threats with his cards, the life gain for you will be nearly always more important than for him. So that is also an important factor for this card, and
Right.
I also like it, probably to a bit more than I should.
Okay, I think proper comparison for Hearthstone is probably the Oracle, the Murloc that draws 2 for both.
Not exactly, because it's slightly different. This works as a harvester, which is also an important thing to note, because you can play him turn 1.
Right. Okay, then I really like Wisdom. I think it's probably better in this game than something like Divination in Magic or Arcane Intellect in Hearthstone.
I actually haven't really. For green decks, probably. For blue decks, there are better options. For it's you can probably play it, but the fact that you're using 3 Faeria to draw 1 new card since otherwise it's card advantage +1. But since otherwise you would have another card in your deck instead of wisdom. I think Magic players tend to misevaluate this card because 3 Faeria is it's not much, but it's still a Faeria cost, and you don't get like your Faeria reset each turn, you gain it. So I'm not that high on this card.
Okay. Meanwhile, I do like all 3 cards that we've mentioned now in Control Shell, especially in a deck that has creatures or some other types of cards that benefit from drawing a lot. Like there is a creature that gets buffed for each time you draw a card, then there is a blue epic or legendary that becomes cheaper for every card you drew.
That's Colossus. First of all, that Colossus is blue, and blue has better card drawing options. My main reason for not liking the card draw we have seen up to now is because you do get a card draw from your power wheel. So basically you can get 2 cards a turn if you so decide. That's what makes the cards that draw cards considerably less efficient in this game.
Right, I see. So perhaps I was wrong in those judgments.
But I don't know. That's also my opinion. What from my play experience, I also might be wrong because you actually want to play wisdom in some control decks because it does give you 2 cards if you don't have any other card draw, but usually you would want to trade more efficiently, like card for card. And the 3 Faeria, for example, imagine using power wheel for a +1 Faeria each turn, or this would in 3 turns you would gather enough Faeria to cast wisdom, or you could have just instead used your power wheel to draw a card each of these 3 turns.
Right, so I see. Yeah.
You would have got 3 cards out of it.
Right, I see 2 wisdoms here, one at rare, one at common, probably because it was downgraded to a common, I guess.
Actually, I think it was upgraded to rare.
That seems kinda odd, considering what we just said.
It's for limited also, but anyways, let's continue. There are some duplicates on this side. It's still in the works.
Okay. Don't like the healing prayer, 3 mana gain, 3. Well, even though I think it works on creatures, or does it?
Not really sure on that one. I'm not really sure even if this is still in the game.
Okay.
But yeah, it's not. Even if it is, it's not efficient.
Right. Do you like the Rebel Slanger?
For aggressive decks, this is a good harvester, and it's you don't need to go to the opponent's God Orb to deal damage. So this is better than it looks. Initially, I didn't like it, but for aggressive strategies, I did came to like it because you can just play a lot of those and shoot opponent. As I said, life gain options are limited, so shooting 2 damage is good. He's better than he seems.
Okay. In our beginner's tutorial, we didn't really talk much about ranged minions. Well,
Yeah.
creatures.
We did skip about that, but anyways, ranged. The developers talk about this mechanic, and there aren't really competitive ranged cards, but some are a bit better than others, like Fire Elemental, which is basically 4 mana 2/2 ranged, which creates a mountain when it comes into play. It's decent mechanic, and this is a decent option since if you're being second right now, you can just slam Hilltop Archer on your first turn and start shooting your opponent. He will this kind of forces opponent to be aggressive. So these guys are kind of good, not on a high competitive level, but he is good for beginners to play with.
Okay, Faeria seems pretty good. 4 mana,
That's
force for
that's
neutral also.
on it. That Prairiac is actually a token from Yak Attack. There isn't actually that card in.
Okay, okay. Right. So what I was actually talking about earlier with Wisdom and the Storyteller, the Wandering Monk seems kind of sweet with all the card draw you can have in your control deck, and then you can have this pretty good creature, I would say. In just in one turn you can make him pretty big, plus he really benefits from that extra draw option from the wheel.
Probably, but he still grows a bit slow because you need to expend resources to draw cards. But if you have the 0 mana costing cycling cards or really cheap ones, then this might get out of hand really quickly. Not with Wisdom though, but green has 0 mana epic that draws you a card and gains you 4 life. So with those kind of cards, yeah, sure, this might be good. So yeah, might get out of hand, but otherwise, but if it doesn't get out of hand, it's slow. So you need to build the deck around it.
I have very mixed feelings about Death Touch creatures in this game.
As in.
Well, this next one, Queen's Assassin, is kind of weird, I guess.
Yeah, well, yeah, I also have mixed feelings. 4 mana for 1/2 isn't really efficient. You don't want to use it as an harvester, but on the other hand, if it's neutral, so you can use it in any deck, and if your collection isn't big, then this basically is a removal spell, which there aren't a lot of on the common and rare levels. So
Right. I would be really amazed if they actually make some events or spells or like structures that will give some of your creatures ranged.
I think there is. I'm not sure actually.
Because
About
with Death Touch minions that will be pretty busted, so it will be like in Magic you would have a pinger with a Death Touch ability, so it can basically just shoot down creatures.
that means that they will definitely do it at some point. Anyways, you do need to know that ranged creatures, they cannot move and shoot at the same time.
Still,
So-
like you can have this cheap Death Touch creature, just give it ranged.
If opponent moves over from the line, he won't be able to shoot it.
Sure, but I still think it will be a pretty broken chain.
Well, kinda. You can technically do the same thing just by buffing the ranged creatures, but that requires currently too many cards to be competitively playable. But let's return to our review, and Queen's Assassin, it's a budget option, not a bad card, but the one you would want to replace later on.
Right, then we see a bunch of ambassadors for each kind of color combination, and let's just say that I don't think they're amazing, but I think they're pretty good.
Yeah, that's what they are in a nutshell. You would want to be playing them if your collection isn't big, but you would want to play something more exciting instead of them. If you count the stats on them, it basically says that they have 10 10 worth of stats for 4 mana. So it's about, if you have both of the lands that you need for them, so it's above what 4 Faeria should give you. But on the other hand, you need to have 4 colored lands, and well, yeah, the card isn't a great one, but it's a decent card. And as with Queen's Assassin earlier, it's a good budget option. And I actually like the ambassadors more than Queen's Assassins, because they actually are able to harvest and to provide a threat for you, and they can trade well.
Okay, I'm very surprised how good actually Freedom Fighter is.
Yeah, and he was originally 3-4, so they nerfed it before you started playing. Yeah,
That's sick.
Good.
That's sick.
He is good. Even after nerfing, he's still really good. 5 mana, 3/3 haste with in any color you want. And if you, for example, use it with Court Jester, which gave a +2/+2 a creature in your hand. Imagine you play Court Jester, and a few turns later, it gives a boost to your Freedom Fighter. Few turns later, you get close to your opposing God Orb and just 5 mana, 5/5 haste to his face. It's plus you can, since you can play him and he can harvest immediately, it basically reduces his cost. So it's not impossible for him to gain you 2 Faeria back the turn you played. So yeah, he's good. He's still really good.
Let's talk about Queensguard and Kingsguard. I get an impression that Kingsguard, in my experience, is much better. I have only the Queensguard right now in the game, and the extra mana was never super relevant. I wanted extra gas, extra removal, extra creatures to play, and maintain better board position. But you just told me that card advantage is not the biggest thing that you should be looking to. Instead, like, you should, I suppose, look rather at the quality that you're gaining and the board position. So it's really now hard for me to think which one is a better one. I suppose, considering what you said today, both are in a way equal.
That's actually also my option. I really am not yet good enough player to discern which one is better. I would say that it depends on your deck. Queen's Guard is basically, you should look at her as a 4 mana Queen. Okay, him. You should look at him as a 4 mana 3/6 taunt, because that's what he will usually be. You will gain, opponent will usually take 2 combat steps to kill him.
That sounds as a good deal, I think.
Yeah, and on the other hand, with King's Guard, well, yeah, he draws cards. It's always good. If you get 2 cards out of him, it's a nice deal. And it really depends on your deck, which you need more cards or Faeria. But I do believe Faeria is the more popular option.
Okay, so I should be happy. Okay, the other two remaining neutrals are nothing significant, just big buddies.
Well, before we move over, let's talk about vanilla creatures. Walking Fortress, Team Enforcer, as well as go back to Waryak and the 4 mana 4/4 Mace Man. You shouldn't really skip them over that easily, because, for example, Waryak was originally 5 mana 5/5, and that was too good, so they actually nerfed a neutral minion.
So they nerfed the Waryak?
Yes, it was originally a 5/5 for 5 mana, and that was too good.
Indeed.
So that's already should tell you that you shouldn't skip over the neutral cards that easily. Waryak still has a good stats, and as a second player you can play him during your first turn of the game, and he will be hard to deal with, because 5 toughness is a number which a lot of creatures aren't able to that easily overcome.
Okay, let's just say that this is a Tarmogoyf if we compare it to Magic cards.
No, you should compare it to Magic cards, not Tarmogoyf, but it's still like Waryak. You shouldn't be ashamed of playing it in your deck. So Freedom Fighter is still better. And as for other neutrals, usually you would have better options in colors. So yeah.
Okay, let's cut here and continue with the colored
Yep.
commons and uncommons. So see you guys in the next video, and we'll continue this series with the rest of the commons and uncommons from other colors. No, now we're done with neutrals.
Okay. Bye.